Hi everyone, welcome to another MakerDAO Collateral call. My name is Juan. I'm the facilitator from the Sustainable Ecosystem Scaling Core Unit. And today it's August the 18th, and we are here joined by the team of CapitalNowCannabis.com and Leah from Centrifuge. And we're going to be discussing their MIP6 application and anything that has to do with their company. So without further ado, Pep, if you want to take it away and present your team, maybe.
Yep, perfect. Well, thank you, Juan, for the intro. I'm here representing CapitalNow Cannabis with Jerry, Josh, and Natalie, our executive team. We're based in Canada, and we're very excited to collaborate with MakerDAO and submit our MIP6 as of 2 weeks ago, around 2 weeks ago. And today we'll be discussing the MIP6 and how the whole process will work, and what we also do at CapitalNow Cannabis, and why we're super excited about this opportunity.
Okay.
So I'll let Jerry go into our background.
Okay. My name is Jerry Wozniak, and I'm the CEO of CapitalNow Cannabis. And we are an alternative financing company, asset-based lender, that focuses on providing working capital to emerging companies, in this case, in the cannabis industry. We started this business 20 years ago as a general factoring company, providing operating capital to small businesses across Canada. We've deployed and transacted about $500 million in 20 years, but it was small invoices. So that was actually over 85,000 discrete transactions. And over that time, our historical loss rate has been pretty low. It's been about 0.5%. The industry standard is about 3 times that amount. We're highly educated and credentialed as a management team. And we started purchasing invoices for cannabis earlier this year. So far, we've transacted about $3 million. We've got a lot of deals in the pipeline, almost 150, and so far we've had 0 losses. Generally, what we do is we purchase invoices, accounts receivable, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, for a discount. What in this proposal, what we're also doing is we're adding a new line, and that's equipment financing. Next slide. Okay. So CapitalNow Cannabis was developed specifically for the legal cannabis industry operators in Canada. And what we're doing when we purchase invoices, purchasing an asset, is it's debt-free financing. And that's what we were, sorry, that's our specialty. So far, we've got about 2 years of research into the cannabis industry in Canada. And we spent hundreds of hours on the phone with industry operators. And we've learned a great deal. We understand the risks, and the risks are not just unique to the industry, but they're also unique to this regulated environment. Typically 2 to 3 days to approve an invoice, a client. And after that, we do same-day funding. Next slide, please. Josh?
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Joshua Reynolds. I am the co-founder with Jerry and Pep and Natalie, and president of CapitalNow Cannabis. I think in this section, we really want to focus on, why the cannabis market and how could decentralized finance be the tool for unlimited growth and potential in this industry. And I've been thinking about this question a lot lately about, what the role of finance is and, the equipment and what it can do. But I think the really important part of what we're building out here is the human element and the opportunity for really changing the direction and growth, globally, but starting here in Canada. So the whole idea, from DeFi was being able to lend to people that didn't have access to regular opportunities. And that's perfect for cannabis. Cannabis has had a long road to get to legalization in Canada and globally. And the battle's been so hard, but what ended up happening is a lot of these guys created a community. The community was always there, but it got stronger and stronger as these business people grew. And with Jerry and I, like you said, spending hundreds of hours talking to all of these different companies across Canada, I think about the relationships that we've gained with them and some of the struggles they've had to do. But the bigger thing is as to why did they get into this business? And I think about a guy named Jeff Black, who's CEO of a company called Glasshouse Botanics on the East Coast. And he started this company because his daughter was diagnosed with cancer. And he was a high management executive at KPMG. And, he didn't have cannabis on his radar. And then his daughter got sick. And he wanted to find ways to improve her life if he could, because, for the 4 years that she fought that battle that she ended up losing, he couldn't handle the fact that she was always on opioids and morphine and all these other things. So he diverted his entire career and his entire life to building out an EU GMP certified cannabis cultivation in Ontario, with the focus of maybe helping other families that didn't have to do what he went through or go what he went through. And he self-financed the entire thing. He's paid for everything out of his own pocket with one other investor. He's had no access to financing. He's had no way of, financing his equipment for his cultivation. And he came to us to help him with working capital to, one, help him mitigate risk, and also for us to be able to build a relationship long-term and help him with stuff that would go down into, the EU eventually when he started selling. And then I think about another person that, was our first client, was Kylie Baldry out of Alberta, who has a company called Parkland Flower. This entrepreneur is just incredible. She worked in the oil patch, which is a big thing up here in Canada. And her father-in-law got brain tumors, and her and her husband, being cannabis users, decided to figure out a way that they could help, create an oil for him to improve the rest of his life. And then her daughter has cystic fibrosis, and that same oil was able to help her. And then she just evolved into this legal, incredible little micro cultivator in Edmonton, where she specialized in growing seeds specifically to be able to sell to retail market, but to also other growers. And she was our first customer. She came to us because she needed working capital so that she could stay in compliance with the regulatory bodies here in Canada. And we were able to help her. And she's a big advocate of us now, and about how we changed the game all the way through for her, how we changed the game for her being able to stay in business, because she had zero access again to any kind of financing. And I really feel that what we're doing is so important, that, these people have went through so many hurdles to get regulated. They're highly taxed. They went through incredible amounts of security to get their licenses. They had to go to friends and family to raise all the money. A few accredited investors helped out down the line. And then of course, Pubcos got involved at certain points. But a lot of these people are still unable to even get bank accounts. Like, to even get a bank account for savings and checking has been very difficult for these. So when Jerry and I started really getting to know these people and got into the alternative financing through factoring for these people, we discovered along the way that I would say 90% of the calls, somebody would bring up, we need access to equipment financing. We need this opportunity to be able to grow our business, grow the market, not only just here in Canada, but eventually globally. And that was the thing that I thought about today, is that being able to enhance the equipment financing with our already services by using both Maker and Centrifuge is such a huge opportunity. We could be helping small, really educated people who really believe in the community and making a difference through cannabis as opposed to opioids and other pharmaceuticals. We could be helping these people with a piece of equipment or extraction equipment that could quite literally change the world. Jerry and I had a conversation with an equipment manufacturer about 5 months ago in Eastern Canada that built a piece of extraction equipment that could take 1,000 kilos of biomass flower and extract it down to 1 liter of product that sells for $1 million. This 1 liter of product sells for $1 million. And it is going to go to research to help improve people's lives. That's something I want to be a part of. That's something I want to help do. And I think that's what makes our story so unique, is that we get to really help out people that believe in what they're doing, have fought really hard for what they're doing. And I'll be honest, I see a lot of similarities between decentralized finance and the way that it wants to move the world forward, and the way that cannabis wants to get away from the previous stigmas to what this product could really be, not just here in Canada, but eventually globally. And if you want to go to the next slide there, Pat. So just to give you guys a little bit of a background. So in Canada right now, it's been federally regulated, not provincially, federally regulated here in Canada since about 2018. There are currently over 700 licensed producers in Canada. There's about 2,300 stores that are retail stores. So there's obviously a couple different components to the way things work in Canada. You've got pre-distribution, and then after distribution goes to the retail stores, which is, basically recreational. We don't deal with that side of the business. We are all on the financing side for production, for cultivation, everything pre-distribution. We currently only operate in Canada, and we do that because of the fact that it is such a high barrier to entry. It's safe to do business here. We understand how the taxation works. We understand how the Health Canada operates. And, for people watching here, to get security clearance, you have to go through the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is similar to, the FBI in the United States. So everybody involved is really scrutinized, to be able to produce this product. Licensed producers will directly transact with DAI and will be at arm's length away from the cannabis industry. I think this is really important, and Pep can come back to this a little bit later on, but it's not.
It will not.
It will not. That's what I mean. Yeah, will not be direct. It will be arm's length. So that's it for that. I think on the next slide there, Pep.
To add to that, as I know there's some concerns around this issue. And the regulators are starting to regulate stablecoins in the U.S., especially stablecoins that are fiat backed. So this was our in non-transparency. This was one of our original concerns as well. So we obviously contacted a lot of law firms because to be honest, we're pretty happy with where we're at right now with Canada, and we definitely do not want to put our lives and our at risk here. I know how serious it gets in the US coming from Thailand, and it's simply not worth it for us to put our personal lives at risk with US laws. And there have been cases where Canadian executives in the cannabis industry cannot go into America simply because they work for a cannabis company. So we took a deep dive into the regulation side. But one, I think a quote on the right side of the screen here is from one of our lawyers that deals directly with crypto and digital assets as well. And they have an office that deals with the cannabis industry. And they were pretty comfortable with dealing with a fund, an SPV structure that has an arm's length to the cannabis industry. And because we're going to be converting DAI into Canadian dollars through the SPV, it will be even more of an arm's length away. So, to make it clear to everyone that, at no point will any cannabis companies, even regulated cannabis companies in Canada, and any of our clients be interacting with DAI. I think that's an important point to make. Because they will be dealing with, the normal currency that they use, which is the Canadian dollars. And then I'll let Jerry go into our assets.
Well, on the equipment side, obviously there's a hard asset. We're going to apply our regular risk mitigation techniques, our underwriting and our processes to this. And then do some extra things that aren't really necessarily done on normal factoring, such as personal guarantees. One important point here is we never advance more than 75% of the assets value. So there's some equity in it to start with. One also a client risk mitigation thing we do that very few others do is we monitor the borrower's bank accounts in real time. And that's probably the very best way of monitoring the actual health of a company, because it is direct, tamper-proof data. The transactions are there, they're transparent. When you're looking at accounting, sometimes you're looking at somebody's version of events rather than the actual transactions. We also, for most of the equipment borrowers, will be maintaining dominion over their AR, which in other words means that we'll have control over their incoming payments, their incoming revenue. This is an extraordinary step, but I think it's a good one to use. Some manufacturers that we've talked to have already committed to doing buybacks of certain types of equipment. So the concern about being able to sell, resell repossessed equipment, for example, is being mitigated by the participation of some of the manufacturers. And we're also going to life and disability insure the loans. It's something that has to be offered on loans in Canada. And one thing in general about equipment in the cannabis industry is much of it actually is usable in other industries. So packaging equipment, for example, can be used in any number of different industries. And so there's already a secondary market established for some of the generic equipment. On the invoice side, what we've been doing so far is buying invoices payable by bank quality companies, but the majority actually is we're purchasing receivables payable by the Canadian provincial boards themselves. So that addresses the typical credit risk that we'd look at. And how it works is the finished goods get sold to the provincial board for wholesaling and distribution. So the provincial governments in all the 2 provinces would pay the producer of the finished goods directly, and with our involvement, we get paid directly by the boards. We have many of the same risk mitigation processes in regular factoring. We only advance up to 75% of the invoice value, so there's some equity there. We monitor the bank accounts. We do receive the payments. We have dominion over the cash. This has been very effective for us. There are extraordinary steps in here that most factoring companies don't take that have very, very much helped our bottom line for risk. Next slide. So far, our average invoice size in cannabis is of a nice size. It's almost $100,000, and cannabis invoices get paid by the boards in anywhere between 15 and 60 days, depending on the jurisdiction. What I like about it is it's highly liquid and it keeps turning, and you can move in and out of participating with a client as you go along. They're easy to disengage from as well. On the equipment side, we surveyed our database, and the people that responded think that they're looking for approximately $430,000 worth of equipment. And these are companies that are upgrading their facilities. Very few of them were actually new companies that are operating companies. We think the loans will range from 1 to 3 years, and there'll be low cash drag because we'll only be requesting funds for specific deals. So next slide. In the chat. So in the pool, we see 3 types of assets. One is invoices to provincial boards, as I was saying, returning 15%. Equipment loans, typical average term 18 months, 12% return. And the third asset, which would be the minority, is when we're buying from non-government entities. That means large bank quality producers, typically publicly traded with solid financials, and that'll return around 18%. The transactions for factoring are kind of, they look complicated, but they're not. The cannabis operator sells to the customer, the provincial board. We buy the invoice. In this case, we'll be drawing the funds from the pool, and after that, the invoice gets paid, and we repay the fund. Equipment financing, very, very similar process. It's just that we've got a purchase order in there, and the payments come back on a monthly basis. So it liquidates over a longer period of time. Next slide.
So this is a proposed structure. So we'll be setting up an SPV that will be holding the underlying assets and collateral. And yeah, that would be the entity that will also be offering the tin and drop tokens. And the minimum tin buffer will be 10%. And we're asking for a $20 million DAI vault and increasing to 35 million when 75% of it is used. And the SPV, as most of you guys probably already know, is set up so that it's remote, and the investors, aka the token holders, will have the rights to liquidate assets in case of default. And working with Maker's guideline, the SPV will also have an independent director, which will also give investors additional protection. And then Josh will go a little bit into how we plan to scale and how we think we can really scale alongside Maker and Centrifuge. Josh, you're muted.
Hi, sorry about that. Yeah, so there's two things I'd like to add to that are really important to what we just talked about. The first one being is one of the reasons why these equipment manufacturers are very keen to participate in a buyback program with us if we were to be able to offer financing is twofold. One, a lot of them have proprietary product or intellectual property they put into a lot of this equipment, and it's in their best interest to buy it back. They get an opportunity to buy this back, to refurbish it, and then to sell it again, so that they can make sure it's going out to the right people. Second thing that's really important that I really want to emphasize in here is that Jerry and I only speak to people who are licensed in Canada. We've had conversations with pre-licensees to find out what they're doing and what they're up to, but at no point are we lending or purchasing any factoring, nor will we be doing any business on the equipment financing side with anybody without a license from Health Canada and without the CRA in place and without the security clearances. This is very important because it is a regulated market. We want to make sure that we're always participating with regulatory people. There's nobody from the legacy or the gray market that we interact with or talk to, and there's no reason to, because Canada has built such a strong system out. So I think that's a really important thing. So where do we see the future with this? Well, I think Canada is really interesting for us to start, number one. I don't know if a lot of people know this that are on this call, but Canada has one of the most conservative banking practices in the world. In 2008, when the crash happened, we relatively went through it unscathed. Our housing wasn't out of control because we're not subprime based. We had Mark Carney as our governor of Bank of Canada, who went on to be the Bank of England. Very conservative. The way our banking is done is very conservative. So we know that building out our system here in Canada, being as regulated it is, being as conservative as it is, and being able to build a business, a strong factoring business already in this environment, is going to give us the ability to scale globally. And for us, we want to focus specifically on Commonwealth and common law jurisdictions. So the future where I see it would be Australia, New Zealand, Israel, Germany, Portugal, Spain. All of these countries have incredibly strong legal systems. Factoring is commonplace for them all throughout Europe and through Asia. So we know we're not going to be, breaking down any difficult barriers there. They're going to understand that practice already. To be blunt, we don't have a lot of keen interest right now in the United States or other countries, and we do get inquiries from other countries, and we let them know right away that we're not looking to expand there. But we know that with your guys' system and Centrifuge and Maker and being partners with you guys, that when Australia, for instance, decides to come on fully legalized, we're going to be able to go in there and we're going to be able to help some of these countries and help navigate some of the obstacles they're going to have to go through, because we've done it here in Canada. We've built the system out in place in Canada. And the biggest thing for us is, Jerry and I and Natalie spend a lot of time talking about, our investor pool and the family offices that we deal with currently in raising money here. And, it works for us here in Canada. But when you go to Australia, it would be wonderful to just be able to, engage with these companies, put our processes in place, knowing that through decentralized finance that the pool is there. It's ready to go for these people. They don't have all of these obstacles that, that they're going to face when they hit legalization. And we can kind of speed up that process just simply because of everything we learned here in Canada. And I can't emphasize that enough, is that, we really appreciate the fact that we're in Canada, and the way that, there's been obstacles, obviously, but the way that they've rolled everything out and the way that it has been so, compliant, from a legal standpoint, has been to our benefit. And we want to be in these environments. We want to be in heavily regulated environments for risk mitigation, obviously, but also for our own comfort. We want to be successful all over, but to do that, we really have to be in these kind of countries that understand what the opportunity is. For me personally speaking, I'm having a lot of fun doing this. I learn something new every day. Jerry and I have never had the same phone call twice. It's an exciting business to be in. These people are so passionate, just incredibly passionate. I wish that I could have brought a few of these people on this call so that they could show you how brave they are, but how committed they are to this growth and to this opportunity. And for me, it's really exciting to be a part of this. And I feel strongly that you and your teams would also be really proud to be a part of this industry and be a game changer, because, not to be altruistic, but I do think that we are going to have the opportunity to change the world by doing what we're doing. This is not just a regular finance business play. This is about real opportunity for growth globally.
Thank you for that. And now we'll take any questions from the community. If anyone has, you can also put it in the chat.
Does anyone have any questions for the team?
Yeah. First, thank you for coming on and making this presentation to the maker community. This is definitely a field where you have to be passionate, right? And most of the people that are in it are passionate. So it does resemble a little bit of crypto, and the passion that comes from crypto, I think, can resonate with your community as well. I just wanted to go over, you mentioned that you monitor some of the, maybe I misunderstood, but you monitor some of the bank accounts of the borrowers. If you could just go over that. And last but not least, you also have on one of the slides that 85,000 loans have been made so far, I believe, and the default rate is less than 1%. Is that correct?
Yes. So in 20 years, we've done about 85,000 invoices, and the default rate over that period of time by volume is 0.5%. Industry average is 1.5%.
Got it.
So talking about the bank accounts, we always monitor the bank activity of our clients, and sometimes we still have to do this. We'll get their bank statements, and we use that in underwriting and monitoring. And I like it because these statements are available in near real time, and the data isn't interpreted. So I can see actual transactions and what they're spending their money on. It tells me a lot, not just about the health of the company, but the way they manage themselves. And some of the stuff that turns up is frankly startling. With some small businesses treat the company bank account, for example, but it does give us a good idea of the people's priorities. So we have a connection directly into their bank accounts. It works with almost all the banks. In Canada, we have a few blind spots. But for those clients, we get their bank statements or screenshots of their bank statements on a monthly basis. The direct connection is better because we review it on a weekly basis. So it might seem like a I won't say invasive, but maybe an unusual step to take, but it is very, very rich data, and it's tamper-proof. It can't be changed. You can't go in and change your bank statement. So it's not interpreted. Financials, on the other hand, the information is at least 45 days old for in-house, and annual financials are highly, I would say, analyzed and put together, and may not represent the actual condition of the company in real time.
Yeah, and I think to opponents of this industry, this actually shows that you're actually you got your hands on the businesses that these invoices pertain to. So I actually think it's pretty cool, in my opinion, and I hope the rest of the maker community can kind of see the same. But I also wanted to ask something, and this is my last question, I promise. OCS, right? You mentioned that a lot of the well, you said that 85% of cannabis sales go through the provincial boards, which is OCS, BCLBB, I believe. So are all these 85,000 previous invoices, most of them went through OCS? Am I understanding this correctly, or this is something that's going to happen in the future that you envision?
That was relating to track record. Thanks for that. Our general factoring company has been around for 20 years. This is how we've been able to build up the experience and track record. So far in cannabis, the transaction count has been fairly low because we're just bringing clients on right now, and really only started buying earlier this year. So, but the principles are exactly the same. Factoring companies are generalists, for the most part, and buy from multiple industries, as we do, and we still do. So cannabis it actually is very similar to the oil field, and the province we're in is heavily involved in oil. So we're quite used to the way that it operates, because oil, if you aren't familiar, is a high barrier to entry because they need a lot of capital and equipment. It's highly regulated and it's highly taxed. So the government has very tight control over that type of production as well. So it's an environment we're familiar with.
Yeah, Frank, I'd like to add one thing here to your question too. One, us buying from the provincial boards, obviously we're talking about AA credit, right? The government pays their bills, which is also something that we're very conscious of. But the second thing is, to give you a little background, I've probably done about 15 or 16,000 asset-based loans in my career. And a lot of those have been to companies or to personal people. And I'm always blown away how some of these companies' financials in previous industries, are not readily available, or they're not up to date, or, they don't know what their accountant's name is. But one of the most amazing parts about cannabis is that because they're so regulated and they have to be so compliant from track and trace from the second that seed goes into some soil to when it's extracted or put into, into a product, it's traced by the government all the way along. Because of that, a lot of these business owners have developed incredible habits as far as financing accounting goes. The amount, you'd think that it would take a long time for us to get the information we would need to onboard, but our system now is down to like 72 hours of having all that information provided. And that includes the licenses, who the board of directors are, their driver's licenses or proof of ID. But the other thing that's really amazing is their financials are readily available. And that's simply because they had to be, from the Taxation Department of Canada, the CRA being involved, and then security clearances. They had to have all of this paperwork constantly on the go. Every cannabis company in Canada has something called a QAP, which is basically a responsible person that at any time, a regulatory body can reach out and have a conversation with that person, who has to be an expert. And that's actually part of the licensing requirement. So that, I think, is another really important aspect in the differences to the level of business structure in the cannabis space compared to even just the regular businesses that we see.
Awesome. Thank you. No further questions for me.
Do we know a bit what's the volume that's to be expected in terms of dye? Like how much the debt ceiling is expected for this vault, or how much it could generate?
Yep. So 20 million DAI to begin with, and then increasing to 35 million. And we were blown away by the demand that we received from just our existing customers. We already have over 25 million in the pipeline for equipment financing. So we think we're, it's not a promise, but we think we're going to blow it out of the water.
We even had one discussion with a manufacturer here the other day, Jerry and I, where they were doing a very large sale, about 65 units to a producer here in Canada. And those 65 units are 100,000 a pop, and it's an all cash transaction. So the opportunity to put financing into this mix is going to be a game changer, not just for them, but even on the equipment manufacturer side. We had one customer who's a small-time equipment manufacturer. She's building an extraction machine that's going to be around $100,000 because she wanted to be able to cater it to the micro levels, which means that if you're a micro licensed, that your canopy can't be over 2,800 square feet, I think it is, or 2,500 square feet. A standard license is anything over that. So she wanted to build a piece of extraction equipment that could cater to the micros at around 100,000. She said to us flat out that if we were able to offer financing or be a financing partner with her, her sales would double. And we feel that that's going to be pretty consistent with everybody across. So with Pep being optimistic, I'm optimistic as well, because of the survey results we got were, I don't want to say surprising, but it was a little surprising how quickly we got that amount in 7 days. But I think the opportunity for growth here is unlimited, truly.
One kind of more basic question. How are you handling the currency risk from borrowing in DAI and switching to Canadian dollars?
Yep. So we would be using, the traditional institutional grade swaps and hedging between US dollars and Canadian dollars. So there is still some currency risk if DAI doesn't stay to the peg. But I think from, what we have seen so far, especially after you guys upgraded your model, it's pretty close. So we're not too worried about DAI depegging, and then we'll be using the swaps.
And then on a more bigger picture level, what advantages do you see in terms of seeking finance through Maker as opposed to a traditional Canadian bank?
Yep. Well, I think what Josh went over with how we can internationally expand in the future, and banks are not comfortable with underwriting cannabis simply because they don't know how to yet. And this is the problem with emerging industries. And as you guys all know, banks move extremely slowly, right? And that's why Maker has been able to do all of this within the last 3 years, while banks have been trying to upgrade the systems and underwriting process over the past 50 years, right? So that's definitely an advantage that we see, and we see it as a lost opportunity, right? And for all of these, and we believe that cannabis is going to grow extremely quickly, and by that time, banks are just gonna start getting comfortable with it, and cannabis companies will already be comfortable with alternative financing solutions. I think in the near future. It's just a matter of time. I know US is the big question mark right now, and the one that people don't want to touch. But DeFi is going to eat up the banks when it comes to emerging industries, which I think also includes cannabis. And in all transparency, lower cost of capital as well. With that Maker is able to offer via the vault mechanics. And also ability for us to be honest, we want to increase the transparency for the cannabis system in the finance side of things, because we think it's important, because these companies, because they don't have access or have a very difficult time gaining access to traditional financial systems, even like bank account, like Josh said. They simply don't have credit, right? It's like, but these are multi-million-dollar companies. It costs, usually over $1 million to just get a license, not a normal cannabis license. So you're talking about real businessmen and women, not just a mom and pop store, and these guys are having difficult times building credit, which being on chain. And I think one of the things we want to work on is actually creating a credit system for the cannabis industry, and especially with the ability to go on chain with a lot of these transactions, and ability to put in the details that we deem appropriate and the clients deem appropriate. We can create a credit system for them.
I think, just to add, Peyton, by the way, those are really great questions too, because the currency risk is really important. It's something that we've spent a lot of time addressing. But the second thing to this that I can't stress enough, all of these companies that we deal with are credit worthy. Like these are phenomenal businesses. They've paid cash for their land. They've paid cash for their buildings. They've paid cash for all of their equipment. I mean, and every one of them would be very happy to put liens against that property if they could get access to a financial model like what we're proposing here. So these are very safe companies to do business with. There's not a whole lot of surprises here. They have to report their taxation. They have to pay. Everything has to be paid on time. And we have this is why we feel so strongly how safe they are to be doing business with, because they've just had to pay cash for everything. They're dying for this opportunity. And like we even had one the other day where, somebody wants to finance a label maker at $40,000. They've got so much equity in their business and in their properties that this should be a no-brainer for any bank on the planet. An equipment labeler, could be used in multiple industries, not just cannabis. And the bank said no, just because they're attached to that part of the industry and they don't know how to underwrite it and they don't know how to do the risk. Well, we do. And we know that with Maker's help, to be honest, there's no need, if we do this right with Maker, there's no need for anybody in the cannabis space to ever go to a bank anyway. And that's the whole point of all of this, is to get away from this banking system, because they don't get it. They don't look at these opportunities for growth like what we do, especially in emerging markets, like Pep has said. So that's where I see the real value is, to be a game changer on a global scale.
Yeah, thanks. That's really exciting. If I could permit myself one last small question here,
Sure.
would be that while the industry is certainly new, it is like a crowded space, right? Like we've seen public companies struggle in the Canadian landscape just in terms of moving to retail. I think by backing equipment and things like that, like it makes a lot of sense. Like you're much safer. But in the event that, let's say, someone does get pinched, they can't sell for the amounts they need, and they have a cash flow problem. Given that you have a low amount of like historic defaults, like how confident are you, or are there more details you could give us in terms of the process you go through using some of those backstops for whether it's the repurchase agreements or what have you for recovering funds?
Sure. There is more to the process, and we're kind of, this is IP for us. We've taken a lot of time and effort building out our processes. So there are other things we can do, and for example, we can sweep bank accounts. Right, we're controlling the AR. I mean, if a company's doing $1 million a month, and we're financing, say even $400,000 piece of equipment, but we're only advancing, say, $300,000 against that, there's enough in their AR to make them whole in most cases. So the scale of the incoming revenue in its entirety compared to the value of the equipment is actually quite good. There's other things, but that's probably the best example.
Yeah, that's incredible. Just from like a finance side, you love to see it, because yeah.
Well,
very impressive.
we have a pretty good collections process as well for when things don't go well. But these aren't the issues we're running into in cannabis. We don't have the same sorts of issues when it comes to collecting. But if it does come down to collecting, we're pretty good at it. Our documentation is well seasoned. It's been to court, it stands up, and we know the process. We're quite effective.
Yep. Peyton, I heard something else too that you were saying there about how the way the industry is evolving. And I think this is something else that I should have touched on earlier is, if we can get this system in place between all three of us, we're going to be leveling a playing field. I made a comment on a panel the other day where, but he was saying it was, where the future is. And my comment was, are there going to be 15 Budweisers? No. There's going to be one. There's going to be a Budweiser in the cannabis space. We know that. It's going to be a race to that. But does that mean that all of the little micros that are making incredible products, they should be destroyed along the way? No, not at all. And that's what we're going to be able to do, is to help out these micros that are growing like incredible craft product. Lady Jane Labs that I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier out on the East Coast. They have this bubble hash extraction process that they do that is just really incredible. Are they ever going to be major players in the space? No, they're not. But they're going to be creating that fine wine that people are going to pay $200 or $300 for. And they shouldn't be lost in the shuffle. Like, these people should be taken care of as well. And that's one benefit we get with decentralized finance and our program is we get to help all of these people. Just because they're only doing 3 million a year or 2 million a year, it doesn't mean they should be ignored. That's a really strong small business. And they need access just like the guys that are 100 million or $1 billion companies. And let's face it, some of those guys haven't been doing a really good job. You read these financials of these $1 billion cannabis companies and you just shake your head. But these smaller guys, they're really doing some amazing things. And I want to help them keep going.
Very excited. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Well, I think that's it. That's it for our presentation. Thank you so much for attending and asking insightful questions.
But before we close, where can people find out more about you and reach out if they have any questions for those watching online later?
Definitely. Yep, our
Offline,
website is CapitalNow Cannabis, and my Maker Forum handle is Pepsinated. Oh no, it's actually Pepper Panic. That will be my Discord handle for with the penguin. So look out for that.
Nice. All right. So
yeah.
thank you for coming over and presenting. Thank you everyone else for joining. Is there anything else you want to say before?
Yeah, I'll just say you guys can reach out to us anytime at capitalcannabis.com. You can reach us directly, both Pep and I, through there. We're happy to take any questions that we can share with you guys. And we're really excited about this opportunity. It's going to be a great enhancement if we can get everybody on board. I think this is something that all of you are going to be really proud to be a part of in the future.
I wanted to just add one quick thought. I think it's been a really fun journey for us here at Centrifuge to get to know the team at CapitalNow Cannabis, and I think especially Pep and Josh can attest that we've really grown together in both our understanding in DeFi and how important Maker is to this entire equation. So and really helping lift this industry in the ways that the CapitalNow Cannabis team is described in depth today. I think one thing that I just wanted to say thank you on, specifically to Frank and specifically to you, Peyton, is I think there's natural skepticism around the cannabis industry, but I feel, at least on this call, and I hope we can support the maker community, as Frank alluded to, in understanding kind of the importance of supporting businesses like this and financing opportunities like this. I think there's excitement leaving this call, and there's only a few of us on it, that I hope we can find a way to ripple throughout well, I guess I shouldn't use the word ripple in the DeFi community. I hope we can vibrate out through the broader maker community, because I think coming into this, there might have been more skepticism or natural skepticism that was warranted, but I hope you've all seen what makes this team and this company and this opportunity so exciting for us here at Centrifuge. And we're excited to hopefully have Maker and all of us be a part of this. So just wanted to say that and say a special thank you to the CapitalNow Cannabis team and to the Maker community. Let us know how we can help in getting this story out there.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you, Colin.
Thanks for coming in. Have a nice one.
Thank you.
Much.
Good day, guys.